Look at your phone. That battery in your pocket represents the pinnacle of modern obsession. But here is the terrifying truth they aren't telling you on the evening news while we've been told the world is transitioning to a renewable paradise. The global power grid is currently operating without a safety net. Right now, if the wind stops blowing in the North Sea and the sun dips below the horizon in the Mojave, the entire global energy storage capacity, every battery, every pumped hydro dam, every flywheel on Earth can only meet 4% of actual demand. 4%. Think about that. We are betting our hospitals, our food supply chains, and your family's safety on a system that is 96% empty. I've spent years analyzing energy infrastructure, and when I first ran these numbers, I thought it was a clerical error. It wasn't. It's a mathematical death trap. While politicians in DC and Brussels toast to net zero, you're the one being set up for the great blackout. In this report, I'm going inside the blueprint of this failure to show you why your electricity bills are skyrocketing even as free energy flood the markets. We're following the money to the storage bottleneck that is about to become the most expensive crisis in human history. This is the blackout blueprint, and time is running out. To understand how we ended up on the edge of this abyss, we have to look back at the original sin of the modern energy transition. For a century, we relied on a synchronous grid. Coal, gas, and nuclear didn't just provide power, they provided inertia. They were the heavy, spinning flywheels of civilization that kept the frequency stable. But over the last decade, we began a frantic sprint to replace those flywheels with intermittent variables. We've spent over $3.8 trillion globally on renewable capacity, yet we've ignored the physics of the gap. Look at the blueprints of a standard national grid today. You'll see thousands of acres of solar glass and steel turbines, but look for the storage, the massive battery banks, or the pumped hydro reservoirs needed to balance them, and you find a desert. The data is chilling. Currently, global pumped hydro, the oldest and most reliable storage tech, accounts for over 90% of our total storage capacity. But we've already tapped the best geographic locations. To reach the capacity needed for a 100% renewable grid, we would need to replicate every existing hydro dam on Earth, 10 times over, in the next decade. It's not just an investment problem, it's a geological impossibility. We are building a high-speed train with no brakes, heading toward a curve called grid instability at 200 miles per hour. I've spent the better part of my career analyzing these flowcharts and infrastructure maps. I'm used to the coldness of the numbers. But a few months ago, I was sitting in my office during a minor localized brownout, looking at a real-time frequency monitor of the Western Interconnect. And for the first time, I felt a genuine sense of dread. I realized that the 4% storage statistic isn't just a number in a white paper, it's the thickness of the ice we're all walking on. I thought about the millions of men and women coming home after a 10-hour shift, expecting the lights to turn on, the heater to hum, and the fridge to stay cold. They've done their part. They've paid their taxes. They've seen their utility rates climb by 30, 40, even 60% in some regions. And for what? To fund a grid that is fundamentally less reliable than the one their grandfathers built in the 1950s. It makes me angry. As an analyst, I see the deception. We are being told that storage is coming, that solid state or green hydrogen will save us in 5 years. But 5 years is an eternity when the frequency drops to 59 Hz today. We are sacrificing the stability of the common man's life at the altar of a theoretical future that the current math simply does not support. You aren't just paying for electricity anymore. You're paying a premium for the privilege of a system that is designed to fail you when you need it most. The conflict in this segment is the betrayal of purpose. We expose the storage shortage not as a tragic accident of physics, but as a calculated shadow play. We reveal how the 96% gap creates a volatility market where the elites profit from the very instability that ruins the common man. We move from the boardrooms of the grid arbitrageurs to the visceral frustration of a father looking at a smart meter that is essentially a debt collector. Follow the flickering lights, and you'll find the money. You see, in the world of high finance energy, stability is boring. Stability doesn't move the needle on a hedge fund's quarterly earnings. But instability is a gold mine. While the mainstream media blames technical hurdles for the 4% storage trap, the shadow players in the energy markets, the grid arbitrageurs, are quietly popping champagne. They've realized that a fragile grid is a volatile grid. When the sun sets and that 4% storage buffer vanishes, the price of a megawatt hour doesn't just rise, it explodes. We've seen surge pricing events where electricity costs spike by 10,000% in a single hour. In a stable system with 50% storage, those spikes wouldn't exist. But in a 4% system, every sunset is a payday for the elites who own the few peaker plants left on the line. They are gaslighting us. They tell you that we can't afford the trillion-dollar battery, while they rake in billions from the price swings caused by the absence of those very batteries. The sanctions aren't on the carbon. The sanctions are on your ability to have predictable, affordable life. It's a rigged game where the shortage is the product, and you are the captive customer. Think about this for a second. While politicians in Washington and Brussels are standing behind mahogany lecterns, making grand speeches about the green transition and energy sovereignty, ordinary families, people like you and me, are the ones being forced to pay the premium. We are being told to buy smart appliances that can be remotely throttled by the utility company when the 4% buffer runs low. I'll be honest with you, it makes my blood boil. I sat across from an energy consultant last week who called this demand-side management. That's a fancy Ivy League term for we didn't build the infrastructure, so now you have to sit in the dark. They expect you to adjust your life to wash your clothes at 3 a.m. or turn off your AC in a heat wave, because they refuse to invest in the gravity dams and the battery banks that were promised a decade ago. It's the ultimate hypocrisy. The private jets of the Davos crowd aren't running on an intermittent 4% safety margin. Their mansions have massive, independent backup generators. They've decoupled themselves from the very fragile grid they forced upon us. You are being taxed for a future that is being built on the back of your current misery. They are selling you the rope and then charging you for the privilege of the knot. Is this progress? Or is this a neo-feudalism where the most basic human necessity, light, is now a luxury controlled by a digital switch? So, where does this leave us? We are standing on a tectonic plate that has already begun to shift. The 4% storage reality isn't a problem that will be solved by a breakthrough in a lab next Tuesday. It is a generational deficit that will take decades and tens of trillions to close. But you don't have decades. You have a mortgage, a family, and a life that requires a steady 60 hertz. If you're waiting for the state to secure your energy future, you are already behind. The new order doesn't prioritize your comfort, it prioritizes its own stability. In a world of 4% buffers, energy is no longer a utility, it is a weapon of control. My advice: stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a sovereign. If you have the means, diversify your physical location. Look for regions with legacy inertia places, still powered by the heavy steel of nuclear or gas, shielded from the volatility of intermittent vanity projects. Invest in behind-the-meter assets. I'm talking about your own storage, your own generation, and your own hard asset hedges. Because in the next 5 years, the most valuable currency won't be Bitcoin or gold. It will be the ability to keep your own lights on when the neighborhood goes dark. We've pulled back the curtain on the storage lie. We've seen the 4% trap and the shadow players profiting from the chaos. But there is a second, even darker bottleneck emerging in the shadow of this crisis. A bottleneck that involves the very minerals required to build that missing 96%, and the one nation that has already moved its knights across the board to seize them all. While we are struggling to store the energy we have, a global resource war is being fought for the energy of tomorrow. And the blueprints for that war are already on my desk. The grid is failing. The storage is gone. The only question left is, who owns the dirt that builds the future? I'll see you in the next report.